I'll probably talk about shifts in cognitive core concepts in perceptual, environmental, cognitive maps or something like that under neurophysiological stress conditions. I don't know. I can make up these fancy titles. It's all the same stuff. I mean, what difference does it make? I mean, I can say all of this without ever talking about God. Then I can go to the Benedictine monastery and talk only about God and never about science, and you're always saying the same thing. Because you're always teaching your being, and your being always comes out. Whatever metaphor you use, it always comes out the same way. And what they've got to hear is that something has happened that really is something has happened. And they can only hear that if they stop sending messages of their model of how it all is. Which means they have got to have despaired of their own model, and very few people who go to national meetings have despaired of their own model. Almost by definition. So it is not fertile ground to do one's work in. It was like giving a lecture at Harvard or Brandeis or MIT or something. Who wants to know, man? They've all got their points on their sleeves. They're all winning, you know. Rational mind's paying off. So I'll go to Washington, and a dozen people say to me, we must get together, and I'll say to them, why? And they'll feel insulted. Why? Why do we have to get together? To reassure each other we're all right? For external stimulation? I'll sit by myself, man. I don't need to sit with you. I don't need to sit with anybody. Why sit with anybody? The only reason to hang out with anybody is to either learn or teach. That's the only reason for words. The rest of the time, sing holy songs. I mean, that's what I like. I was with Bhagwan Das, my guru brother in India, and all these people around the temple, and that's all that ever happened. Either the speaking, which was mostly writing on chalk slates, the speaking was either specifically for the purpose of teaching some specific information about methodology of altering consciousness, or else we sat silently. If I say to you, it's a nice day, and you say yes, is that necessary? Why, what is that about? Did I have to reassure you it was a nice day, or what? It's like driving with somebody along a beautiful coast and they keep saying, look at that beautiful tree. I feel like I've been through 6 billion years of hanging out. Let's hang out. We don't even say let's hang out. Just, what are you doing tonight? Nothing. Well, come on over. Well, what do we do? Well, it doesn't matter. We'll just hang out. Smoke some pot. Yeah, just hang out. Sure. Okay. Listen to some records. Talk. You gonna have supper? Well, I'll eat with you. Why? Don't bother, I eat alone. You eat alone? Eat alone? I'm driving to Boston. Do you want some company? No. You don't want some company? Wouldn't you be happier having somebody in the car with you? No. Well, I don't understand that. Certainly unnatural. Don't you think we should be together so we can reinforce our attitudes, so we can make sure it's always all right? I'm interested as I watch around this residential community of satsang, the amount of hanging out that still goes on. The fierce hangout place is always the library, I notice. There's a lot of hanging out there. It's really like walking into an old movie every time I walk in the door. People are hanging out and telling about their interesting events in their lives to each other. You can't let it doesn't happen if you keep pulling yourself back down all the time. That's the problem. You don't let it happen because you're too frightened. The ego holds too tight. The ego holds too tight. Keep pulling yourself back down. Every time you start to get into another state of consciousness, many of you experience that with pranayama or breathing or with meditation. Do you ever meditate and you've been doing this rising, falling, and suddenly it starts to happen. I was perfectly happy to just be doing rising and falling, and suddenly... I have a tendency, I know, you see, what things I can do with my own body and mind to take me into higher states of consciousness. I also know that there is still some discontinuous stuff in me, so that when I get into certain states of consciousness, I will be less effective than in other states. Knowing that, I then create conditions around me that demand efficiency, that don't allow me to get into those higher states of consciousness. See the game? So I can always say, if I didn't have that commitment, then I'd really let go. So then I can damn that out there, when of course I created that in the first place. When I was traveling with David in Afghanistan, and I said to him, David, man, you really bring me down, his answer was, baby, that's your problem. Which was true, because he was telling me I am only talking about myself. I created that in him which is bringing me down in the first place. Time last year when I was alone up in that cabin for days, and I would be surrounded with the pictures of Ramana Maharshi, Ramakrishna, Christ, Buddha, Maharaji, Haridas Baba, Bhagwan Das, Hanuman. And I had all their writings around me, and the letters, and I had my tambura, and I was just reading all their words as if they were talking to me, and looking at their pictures and singing love songs to them, and I was hanging out. I mean, I figured, look, I apparently still need to hang out, but if I'm going to hang out with somebody, I might as well hang out with somebody who knows how it is. There's no sense in hanging out with somebody who doesn't know how it is. People come up and say, what are you, some kind of an idol worshiper? What are all those pictures doing on your walls? I mean, do you really believe in all that stuff? I say, well, you got to cover the walls with something, just pictures. And then I say, well, those are the people I hang out with. People I hang out with. You can't say to Ramana Maharshi, it's a beautiful day out today. You can say it to him, but man, it rings. There's a certain empty ring in it when you do it. It's raining. I wish the sun would come out. Imagine that one. Gee, my arthritis is killing me, Maharaji. He just laughs himself sick. With compassion. Compassionately. Compassionately. See, once you get intimately involved through consciousness enough with a higher being, through the writings of, or the thinking, or the meditating with, then everything you do all day, you run through that mind. It's just like most young people run everything they do through their mother's mind or their father's mind. And they may do something 20 years later that is an achievement, and they can't figure out why they did it, but they know their parent would say, well, that's a good boy that did that. And they get a feeling of pride, some little warm feeling from rehearsing that thing, of running their whole behavior through the consciousness of one of their parents. So if you're going to run it through somebody's mind, you might as well run it through the mind of a realized person who understands the illusion. See, Mary Jackson, the gal that works for my father, she has only one book, and that's the Bible. That's it. And every night she goes up to her room and she reads the Bible. And in the morning, she wakes up early in the morning. I see her light on around 4 in the morning, and I know she's reading the Bible. And she just runs everything in life through the Bible. And when she's doing the housework, she's singing songs to Jesus. Now, it's interesting about Mary because Mary can do all that and then turn around and get terribly paranoid about being exploited and get into a tremendous servant-master type melodrama, you know, and not have any awareness about the Bible at that moment. It's like the big compartments. There's Mary 1 and Mary 2. And if you say, Mary, how would Jesus look at that? You're feeling that you're not getting enough time off. You just feel like you've dealt a dirty blow. Because what you'll have to say is, oh, you're right, Mr. Richards, you're just absolutely right. You're just absolutely right. Jesus would say, just give it all away. Jesus would say that. Yes, he would. It would make no difference. All it would mean is at that moment she had a twinge of discomfort, but then a few minutes later she'd go right back into that same place again. Because there are things in Mary that resonate with the worldliness that are in the people around her. See, you've got to dig. Let's say you work for somebody and money is passed from hand to hand for the work. Now the question is, where is the consciousness of the people who are giving the money and receiving the money? If I am the giver of the money and I am looking at you as help, it is subject-object relation, and if you climb into that place in my head, you and I are going to be stuck in a very low place of paranoia. On the other hand, if both you and I see, here is supply, here's demand, here's goods, here's services, here's green energy, you have this, you need this, we'll exchange this, and here we are, and we're doing it from this place where we both see how it all is and we both share the understanding, and we're collaborators. We're collaborators in the the roles we're playing. You want to be the boss, I'll be the, we're collaborators. Then the action itself, the work, the labor, takes one into a higher state of consciousness rather than to a lower state of consciousness. It's like a woman came to see me the other day who was a teacher, and she said, how can I be a better teacher? And I said, by realizing that you are a human being first and a teacher second. Get into a collaborative relation with the kids. And then you can play the role of teacher and student. employer-employee, husband-wife, lovers, father-son, and as the Bhagavad Gita says, even enemies. Can you dig having an enemy and at the same moment both of you up-leveling so that you see you are both being enemies and that's the way it all is and this is the drama we're caught in and we just got to go through this one and one of us is going to kill the other one? That's like the samurai. That is doing what one does and at the same time not being attached or identified to the role of being the doer. That's what that's all about. Guy says, gee, after I've experienced all this, can I go back to school and just be a student or be a professor? Boy, if you've got your center, you'll be 10 times better as a student than you ever were before. You'll be 10 times better as a professor. Because if I make a contact with you, if I am teaching you and I make a contact with you where here we are, you are then open to receiving whatever it is. Since there's only one of us, it's just like my right hand isn't paranoid about my left. Watch out for that left hand. It's got a very, very, I don't know, the twist of that little finger looks like might be with the CIA. Watch out. There's no paranoia among us. It's only paranoia about them or him. It's breaking down the compartments. It's just like trying to help Mary to break down her compartments. I can't do anything. All I can do is be something so that every time she's around me, wherever she was at that moment, she's got to come to this other place because this is the place that resonates with that place in her which reads the Bible. And she does the same thing for me. We turn each other on. I mean, she comes in the morning, I come down in the morning. I've told you this before. I come in the morning dressed like this, and I'm sort of just coming out of my dreams, and I'm uptight. And I'll walk in, and I'm sort of thinking like, oh, man, they dumped the garbage out there, and oh, everything's wrong, and Dad's uptight. And I walk in, she said, Mr. Richard, you look just like Jesus. Wow, baby, that's a hard one to face first thing in the morning. I better get on with it. Sin not, lest you... And I used to say, Mary, lay off, will you please? Come on now. It's pretty heavy. Or you sit down, I have my meal with my family, and she said, oh, it's such a joy to serve the Lord. Who can eat? Who can eat? Oh, she's so beautiful. So beautiful. See, we all have the problem of Sunday religion. I mean, it's like a thing where we buy off a certain place by a certain kind of purity, and then we have these compartments where then we close off and we're somebody else. It's the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde phenomenon. It's the fact that we all get to a place where we are two beings. There is a process, a transformation going, and there are two beings. And your focus is like, I once was taking a course in histology, and I did the final exam, which was to go look at a slide and write what you saw, and I wrote the whole thing, and all I had done was I had focused wrong, and I had focused on the cover glass rather than on the stuff, and I had done a great description of the cover glass, for which I flunked, of course. Well, he gave me a D instead of an F because I did the cover glass so well. I mean, it's such fine tuning. How can you be expected to...